Hi, Paul. It's me, your old pal, Toppy Smelly, from across the channel, across the pond, here in the Mercas. I had to say congratulations for being around for 5 years. You know, a lot of podcasts are out there, and a lot of them never get past a couple episodes, let alone 10. But here you are, 5 years going strong. You're on episode 5032. I don't know how you do it, but congratulations. I love having the Shy Life podcast in my ear holes, and I just want it to keep going on. And it's just been a pleasure having you as a friend all this time. So congratulations on the Shy Life podcast this month, 5th year being around. Neat. Kino. Sako. That's kind of an Americanism. We say Nito. Well, okay, we haven't said Nito Sako around here for a couple, 3 decades. But Nito Sako. Bye.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Darling, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Yes, but it's a positive thing, Paul. The High Life, the Shy Life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
Hello, Paul.
Delicious.
This particular episode of the Shy Life is a little more abstract than usual.
Oh, yippee.
Okay, looks like the hairy guy's ready to record. 3, 2, 1.
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, I hope he hasn't found out my secret. Do you think he has?
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Shy Life podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How are you doing? I'm all right. We've got Nick Goodman with us here today. Hi, Nick. How are you doing?
Hello. I'm fine.
I brought you here for a particular reason. I make no bones about it. This episode will have a lot.
You want to marry my daughter?
I want to marry your daughter. No, but I do want your advice, and I do want your. I do want your ears. No, I want your.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Yes, this episode will have a lot of clips in it because we are here to celebrate 5 years of the Shy Life podcast. Can you believe it?
Whoa.
5 years. So I just wanted to sort of have a.
It's gone very quickly. Yeah.
I just wanted to sort of, I don't know, chew the fat with you about. The fact that we've been doing the show for 5 years, and make a few sort of I
cannot believe it. It's 5. I remember you doing about these and thinking, oh great, you've got another thing that we can contribute to. And I've come. I didn't realise it was as long as 5 years, but it's about 5 years since we've been digitalising Sutton Park as well, and that happened about the same time. What was the month that you started?
Well, we'll save that for after the theme music, and yes, and when we come back, the story behind the start of the Shy Life podcast will be revealed.
It's time for my old buddy, old pal from across the channel, across the pond, Paul Chandler, the Shy Yeti.
He's not that shy. Oh, the Shy Life podcast. Yeah.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, you know.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Good boy. He's not all that shy, is right.
Blimey, Governor. It's the Shy Life podcast.
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life podcast.
He's positively glowing.
And we're back. You were asking what the story was behind starting the podcast. It was one of those.
Well, so when it started, really.
Well, yeah, it was May 2016. So, which although we're recording a little bit before that, when this comes out, it's only a month or so away. It's funny because I think it was I'd been a guest on the Smellcast with Toppie, and I'd also found out that Toppie didn't mind if I sent the occasional sort of little message. A lot of podcasters, unless they've got a really established situation where their listeners do send in messages or questions. Big Fatty Online, another show that I've been involved in, that is something that happens a lot. And I also around the same time discovered that he was up for me sending messages, and I wasn't going to just. I mean, whereas some listeners want to send a message about what they've been doing or what they've been buying or where they've gone or a question, or I saw that it gave me the opportunity to send something a bit different or a bit fictional or semi-fictional. And the first things I did for Toppie were, there was some pods growing in my garden and a bit like, kind of going along the Invasion of the Body Snatchers type thing. And then I also did some messages, which I think I broke into 3 or 4 parts, where I walked from Weybridge back to my house via the lake that's quite near us, and making it sound, it's all a bit weird, or was there something in the lake and then bumping into Cromitty, or at least a character with Cromitty's voice, and so that was just giving me the ideas of doing that. And I remember Toppie saying to me when I did start the show, well, we talked quite recently, and you didn't mention that you wanted to do a podcast, and I was like, I literally decided the day I started recording that I was going to do. I mean, it was very similar when I did my poetry videos. I literally went to Bournemouth with a friend and decided I was going to get a new camera. Discovered that the camera had a good digital video camera on it, and then thought, okay, what can I do with that? And very quickly, doing the videos and then bringing back Sutton Park, which didn't last as long as the original. It was more of a mini series, but the decision to do those things was very. Oh, right, I can do that. Okay, let's start. With the poetry, I always had plenty of material that, and it wasn't like I just had to find some poems to read and maybe find a nice location.
Did you see it very much as the next thing, as far as getting your work out there, being creative, all that kind of thing? Yeah,
there is that element to it. I mean, I did poems very early on from the start. I do less poetry on the show these days, and it's not because I've run out of poems as such. I'm still doing, because if you remember, as you came to quite a few of the shows, I was doing when I was still writing new poetry, which I'm sort of not writing poetry at the moment because I feel like I want to break from it. But I like. It's nice to be able to do it on the show or to perform on the show. But as you remember, I used to do shows at the Poetry Cafe. So I do shows about my latest book, but then I was also starting to do, it's 10 years since this book came out, and I'll do a night which is just poems and that's what I still do on the podcast. The books that I released in the 10s are now hitting their 10th anniversaries. So I'm still, even though I haven't done a live show at the Poetry Cafe since 2016, I'm still celebrating all the books as they come out and doing 10th anniversary episodes of the podcast. So this year there may not be much poetry like every episode, but there will be 3 or 4 episodes, because 2011 was a very prolific year for me and my poetry. I released 3 books that year, so there'll be at least 3 episodes this year. And it's also the 20th anniversary since my first book, so there may even be 4 episodes this year that are all about poetry. But at least, in a way that works quite well. If you're not interested in poetry, you can skip that episode. If you do like poetry, you'll know where they are. What I was going to say is I don't think when I started I wanted to set exactly what the show was going to be about. I wanted it to be about everything and anything. I didn't want to say it was just going to be a film podcast or a music podcast would have meant there was, and not to denigrate people who do just do that, but for me I wanted to not know what was around the corner, or to be able to say, okay, we're going to do this time, and things like doing travelogues. I mean, I wish it was easier to do video still. I probably would do. I mean, it's not easy to travel at the moment anyway, but I have done episodes of the podcast from places I've travelled in the last 5 years. Had it been easier to do, I might have done video episodes of those trips, but actually I only did audio episodes, which really, I mean, I took plenty of photographs, but obviously doing an audio episode in Venice isn't quite as exciting as a video episode, but it does make you look for different things. So if you go to Venice, you start to think, if the bells ring, then you make sure you get those, or I would think, well, maybe I need to have a plot line as well, or a story, because I can't give as much of Venice to the listeners as I could as a video maker.
Although I now have a fairly small but very high definition video camera, so if ever you need again to record anything in the future, I've got.
I think it's the editing thing that really knocked it on the head for me slightly. In that it was just not as easy to. It just wasn't as easy to edit the finished project. There are so many places you can edit things, but they're just not as easy as that Windows Movie Maker I used to have access to, which was just so simple to use.
I have to say, with editing, I sympathise very deeply, because I was making films for 15 years. What I think one of the things I've always identified as the straw that broke the camel's back was my attempts to get into digital editing, because I couldn't really carry on as I was doing, with pausing a tape, and I was still doing that in the early noughties. It was starting to look very ropey, and I was thinking, well, and I didn't realise. It took me 5 years effectively to master it and finally get. Once I mastered it, I got everything digital, everything. It's much easier, and I'm okay with editing now. But that 5 years was very damaging to my confidence. I made my last film in 2008, by which time that was a breakthrough year as far as editing goes. But by that time, I hadn't made a film. Well, I hadn't. That was my first film for 2 years, and previous to that, there was only it was starting to get 2 year gaps, and you lose the impetus. So I think editing, if you can't get it right, then it can really dent. It can take the momentum out of these things.
When I started the podcast, I thought, right, I'm going to record the pilot episode, which was a very short episode, about 15 minutes. And I walked up the road from the house and went sort of down to the canal and just recorded some little bits and pieces. And I think over the next few days, did some silly voices, did some funny little sketch. It was almost like how I did the Beaches broadcasting. It was going to be like it was almost like going to be like an audio or radio version of Beaches broadcasting, in that it was, I just wanted to see what it sounded like put together. And I think at that point I was still thinking, oh, well, I'll put this out in the summer. But it came, and there was a big learning curve, because I needed to find an audio editing software. I wanted to do this all for free if possible, and I needed to find a host, which wouldn't be free, but I needed to, how do I do a logo, how do I do this, how can I, a lot of these things like Photoshop. I mean, I didn't use Photoshop, but I used something similar, and I'd never done things like that. I wasn't familiar with Photoshop, so it was quite a steep learning curve, but I think as I said to you before, if you have I found if you're not sure how to do something, type into Google, how do I put words on a photo, or how can I make a logo,
right,
and you'll find someone somewhere will have discussed it, and I was able to work my way through all those by doing that sort of thing. Although I knew other podcasters, it's one of those things where talking to someone about it wasn't necessarily going to be the way to the solution. You needed to kind of do it, and I wasn't, sure whether it was going to be a long-term thing or a short-term thing. Hello and welcome to the Shy Life podcast with me, Shy Yeti. Yes, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen in this first show. I'm just going to try a lot of different things and see what works best. Yep. Okay, right, let's get started. Play the music. Before I continue much further, I just kind of wanted to share with you why I'm trying to do this podcast. Those of you who will remember my videos on YouTube under Mr. Shy Yeti will be thinking, perhaps, why don't I go back to doing that? Well, that was fun, but it did get to the stage where the editing became a problem. I'm hoping that won't be the same case with the editing of this show, but we shall see. I do want to do different things, though, with the podcast. I myself have started listening to some really good podcasts in the last 2 or 3 years. I will mention my favourites at some point. But I think I've learned a lot of tips from listening to those shows. And one of the things, I have learned myself is that I would listen to a podcast in a situation that I would never have the time to listen to, say, watch a video. I listen to podcasts while I'm doing work, while I'm commuting. It's a completely different form of communication, and I've got ideas for my show that are perhaps a little bit like the videos I used to make. I want to sort of make them lots of little segments, perhaps with different people. I want to mix in my travelling with my poetry and my writing. I might record things if I do any shows on, as I say, on holiday perhaps. And I have guests, and I want to talk about old films, sort of perhaps more obscure films. I want to talk about lots of all the things that make up the Shy Life, the Shy Yeti's life. And as far as length is concerned, I have read a lot of things that said all podcasts should only be 22 minutes long. And to be honest, I'm listening to a lot of podcasts that are far longer than that, and I like all, I like all different sorts of length. Yeah. And so I am going to see how my show works out. And I probably won't do more than an hour at most, but I might do half hour. I shall see. It may change from episode to episode. I'm going to record quite a lot of material to start with and piece together some episodes in advance so that before I put the first episode out, I already have a few more recorded. Anyway, so I shall move on now, and I may come back to the subject. I may talk more later, but let's see what happens next. Thank you for listening. Well, I've got a couple of letters here that I think they're actually sort of well wishes about the new show, so that's quite exciting. One of them is from a gentleman named Charlie Gurr. It's quite well known where he comes from. Charlie Gurr says, "I always did think that you had a face for radio. Well, thank you, Charlie. And the other one here is from, can't quite make out the name, Katrina something or other. Anyway, she says, is it true that when you used to make your videos, you ended up on the video nasty list? Well, no, it's not true, Katrina. Thank you for writing in though anyway.
Mr. Mosquito. Mr. Mosquito quite ferocious, his table manners most atrocious. He'll do his worst now as you're sleeping, in your ear hole deeply creeping. Busy buzzing has his way, he plans to dine but will not pay. Some claim he cares not why attacks. Just keep an eye out, just don't relax. A horrid, hovering, winged beast, you are his brunch, his midnight feast. Mr. Mosquito quite persistent, don't think to him you'll be resistant. Repellent sprays just make you wetter, whilst pills and potions work no better. Those creams you use applied too late just help attract them and seal your fate. Some claim he cares not who he'll hurt, he'll chew your veins until they spurt, until your head begins to throb. Oh boy, he don't half love his job. Mr. Mosquito quite a sucker, your blood is what he likes for supper. Your tasty neck, your juicy flesh, that crimson nectar tastes so fresh. He'll zoom about without you knowing, steal all he needs and then be going. Some claim he cares not whom he bites, from the lowest to the highest heights. How strong his thirst, so very vast, I suspect he's saving you till last. Mr. Mosquito quite mistaken, so drunk on life he's looking shaken. A risky choice his way to be, it takes its toll and isn't free. With all this guzzling there's no denying, it's tiring work to be forever flying. Some claim he should have known the dangers, slurping blood from total strangers. But he met his match, the town vampire. Mr. Mosquito is now retired.
One of the things that you learn when you are a librarian is that you can't trust books. I mean, they will lie to you. Not all of them. It's like children, you know, some are more honest than others. Politicians, you know, books are the same. You have to be very careful. Some of them will come and tell you, look, you know, I've got some at the moment that say they were published in 2017, which, you know, is 2016. They clearly haven't been published in 2017. That is, unless they've come through some sort of time portal, which I guess is possible, but unlikely. So, as I was saying, one of my jobs is to buy new books for the library, which is great. Really enjoyable. I enjoy doing that. One of the sadder parts is when I have to decide to get rid of them, which ones are going to go. Sometimes they're just not being used anymore, and we are a very small library. We do need to kind of make space for new things to come in. But, you know, it's always difficult. But the other thing, going back to what I was saying about books lying, it's not so much lying as occasionally they will sprout new chapters. Yeah, it's true. It is honestly true. I mean, they are trees after all, or they come from trees. But, you know, the trouble is you have to keep an eye on all of the books because, you know, after they've been there for a while and if the air is slightly damp, then, yeah, you can quite easily find new chapters developing inside the books. And they won't necessarily be of the subject you want either. So you could be reading, I don't know, 21 leaders of the 21st century, but inside a chapter from a Jackie Collins has suddenly sprouted. Or you might be reading, I don't know, leadership therapy or something, and inside you've got J.K. Rowling, which, you know, nothing wrong with Harry Potter, but it doesn't belong there. So you have to be so careful. But I've got a book here that has been on the shelf about 5 years. It's developed a few chapters from Alice in Wonderland. So I'm going to show you what I do. I have to remove them. It's not a, it's a brutal process, but ultimately has to be done. So I hope this isn't distressing for anyone. So I've got the chapter here, which shouldn't be here, and I have to rip it out. There's another one here. I have to rip it out. If you do it quickly, they don't feel any pain. So you really have to get on with it, do it, and ooh, it's nasty. I have to get a bit of sellotape for that one. It's leaking a few words. And this is the last. There we go. So that book is back to normal now. It's as it should be. Book on the environment, and now it doesn't have those Alice in Wonderland chapters inside it. Well, I mean, I'd rather have Alice in Wonderland here in the library. It's more interest to me, but sadly, no, it doesn't belong here. So anyway, we may come back to this another time, but I hope it hasn't been too distressing to listen to. I just thought it'd be interesting for you to see some of the things I have to do in my job as a librarian. Another time I may discuss the magic of shushing. Shh. See, yeah, it's not just shushing is something you get taught in library school. It's not as simple as you might think, but that's a story for another day. But, anyway, meanwhile, elsewhere.
Hello, my name is Damius Twinklehorn. I'm an actor. I am here to just discuss with you a number of the films that I was in. You may have seen me in a number of Hammer films during the 1960s. I played a tree during Tickle the Heart of Dracula in 1966, and again I played the back end of a horse during Pick the Nose of Frankenstein in 1968. I must say it was quite a thing, quite an experience. I was also in a number of 70s horror movies, many of them made in Italy. I played a pigeon in Slash the Face of Juliet in 1971, and I was also, I was a stunt double for the main female lead, because I have very delicate ankles. Yes, very delicate ankles for that matter. It's just my little joke. I shall be back soon when I shall talk to you more about my experiences in the movie business. This is Damius Twinklehorn signing out. Bye.
I'm sorry, dearie, what is it you wanted to say? Really? Tell me, what do you want? Can I help you? What do you... Really? Did you like the first show that I did? Did you like it? You're not sure? Maybe you need to listen to it again. Second time. Yeah? Oh, that doesn't sound... What was that, like a 5 out of 10 review? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah. I think that's probably a 5 out of 10. I hope everyone else enjoyed it a little bit more than that. Yeah. Maybe next episode. Well, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Yes, it was a little bit rough around the edges, but we can only get better. We really can only get better. Okay, well, join me next time, and I'll say goodbye for now. Goodbye for now! My first special guest, and I think it was just because he happened to be... Now,
the other thing about starting the podcast is that I'd had like 18 months of being unwell due to some blood pressure medication that had had a bad reaction, but it didn't have a bad reaction overnight. It had a slow reaction, and I ended up with my legs all bandaged, as you'll remember, and that was a lot of time off work, a lot of going to the health clinic sometimes every day, sometimes 3 times a week, or sometimes hospital trips, all sorts of things. And it was in April 2016 that for about 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, I was going to the lymphedema clinic, and I was having this treatment, and after I'd had that treatment, I was going to move on to the next stage where I wasn't going to have to be wandering around like a mummy or half a mummy. And I kind of thought, well, one of the things that would be nice to give me an excuse to go out would be if I did this podcast, and it would be, I didn't want to do it like set in a studio with, I wanted it to be everything. Maybe some episodes could be like that, but I also wanted to be able to go and visit somebody or chat to someone in a park or go or record when I'm on holiday, or when it comes to knowing that I would have the chance to exercise a bit more regularly, I wanted to have an excuse to do something out and about. And one of my first guests, or my first proper guest, was my old school friend, Paul Hillier, but it just happened that he came to visit. And I was doing episode 1, I think, at that point, and I sort of said, do you want to talk about school days? So we talked about, I know that Paul has particular memories of our shared school days where he still resents some of what our headmistress was like, even to this day. And so I knew he'd make for a good guest.
Hello, well, today I am out in the Surrey countryside. I'm here with my friend Paul, who I went to primary school with. Hello, Paul. Hello. Is there anything that you can think of? Any particular anecdotes that are clean? Well, they should be clean. We're only kids, but are there any stories that aren't going to get us into trouble about your time when we were at school together?
Yeah, well, there was that time that I fell down the stairs on my honeymoon, but
You were not at school. You weren't at school then, I hope.
No. The first holiday that we went on, not really a holiday, we went to the Brecon Beacons.
Oh yes, we went
Stock primary school.
Yes, that's right. That was actually my last week of primary education.
I had two. So the first one, school organised loosely as a holiday in order to get permission from parents. And when you actually got there, it was Starlag 4, and essentially you were there to work and look at maps, and it got to about 8 o'clock in the evening. I was thinking, this is ridiculous.
I do remember.
When are we finishing?
I do remember it being quite. I do remember some of the countryside being. I do remember some of it fondly, but I also remember it was one of the first times I'd been away from home, and I remember. I think I was ringing my mum. I don't know if I'd done that a couple of times, but I think it had been decided, or was decided by the headmistress, that no more people calling back home. We're away from home. That's the whole point. And I remember. I think I was the last person, and then in the queue, and I was on the phone, and maybe she turned up and she was saying no more calls.
Yeah, she was uncomfortable with people making outside contact.
Yeah, this is true.
Nowadays you'd sue.
But I remember being quite upset, and I was talking to my mum, and I was being all sort of, yes, it's really nice, and being quite sort of, when I put the phone down, I'm not going to be able to call her again. I remember it being quite upsetting, and I don't think that the headmistress really thought about the fact this was the first time that a lot of us at the age of 10 or 11 had been away from home.
Well, that's right. And also, the big difference is this was her idea of what a holiday should be. Whereas, of course, as you get older, you realise actually holidays should be fun and should be things that you wanted.
Well, I suppose they did need to kind of have some sort of learning involved in it, but even so, it was quite traumatic.
I didn't learn anything from it. I learned how much I hate the Brecon Beacons.
I liked it.
Well, I can't remember very much about. We went to a national park, I think.
It was very pretty. I remember the best bit was when we all
because although we had the headmistress that was there, we had the people who ran the place had authority above her, and we'd been somewhere for a big walk, and they said, when we got back to the van, they said, right, everyone jump in the river, and she was furious about that. She was kind of like, no, they can't do that, and the person in charge was like, I'm sorry, this is I'm in control. I'm in charge.
Well, and also, from their point of view, they think, well, if you had been around instead of drinking elsewhere, perhaps this wouldn't have happened. But as you chose
I don't know who would have...
to absent yourself, you can't really then start complaining about what took place.
I don't know. Yes, she wasn't actually there, was she?
She wasn't there, and neither was the other teacher.
No, I don't know what would have happened if we'd all been washed downstream, though. But
well, I mean, obviously we can't go into details because of legal reasons, but essentially it was a derogation of duty, and nowadays you'd sue and you'd say, I'm sorry.
We probably wouldn't be allowed to do any of what we did at school.
No, that's right, yeah. But anyway, that was the first occasion when we were away.
The first time. But I remember some of our first recordings were done before I got to come. Because I must have decided that I was going to do it in a gap between. We usually see each other in normal times. We'd see each other about every month, every 6 weeks. So I must have decided to do it around the time that. I maybe in the gap in between seeing you once and seeing you the next time, because I with typical enthusiasm I couldn't wait until I saw you next, which wouldn't have been that long. We talked and I turned the speakerphone on, and I recorded you speaking via the speakerphone the first time you appeared.
That's right, I remember that. Yes, that's right.
And that was one of the early episodes.
Before we got really sophisticated and do it as we are doing as we speak by Skype.
Hello? Hello, is that you, Paul?
Oh, Nick, is that you?
Hello, yeah.
Well, what a coincidence! It's funny. I was going to ask you if you'd like to be a guest on my podcast. Is that something you'd be up for?
I'd be absolutely delighted. I don't think I've got anything on.
Well, good. Well, get yourself into a jet dressing gown, and then we'll speak.
There's so many people to talk about, so many TV programs to talk about, so many projects to talk about.
Yeah, that sounds like it'll be more than one episode at this rate.
Oh yeah,
let's get talking. Yes.
Also, I mean, I've learnt I've learnt a few things with working on the Shy Yeti podcast and RTA. It was obviously the early sort of years were around the time when my dad had just died. My dad died early in 2016, and my mum died in 2018, and I was looking to record memories. And of course, I was working on a couple of books at the time, the Magnet Memories and Life After, where because our co-author on Magnet on the Life After one was something of a you had to work. Although he was a good writer, you had to work hard to get anything out of him. I've been taping. I've been recording interviews with him on the laptop with a great big mic, and of course working on the podcast with yourself, you introduced me to digital dictaphones, and I thought, it really is time I got myself one of those. It would make it so much easier, and sure enough, it has. And I love my digital dictaphone, and of course, I use it every time I do the podcast, and I wouldn't be without it now. And I did loads of interviews with my mum on it. When she didn't have much time
we used on the show.
And so,
I mean, that was another thing that I wanted to do when I started. Was I wanted to be as tech basic as possible. I didn't want lots of equipment, so I wanted to record. I'd been recording messages for Toppy on my iPhone which I think, and that was another thing, I got a new iPhone around the time that in the same way as I got a new camera around the time I started my videos, I got a new iPhone around the time I started the podcast, and then realised how good the recording was. I wanted, and although I did get some other recording devices which I sometimes use and which you use and which you're using now, I didn't really want too much tech. If it meant that I couldn't record an episode from the centre of Venice because I wasn't able to set up my equipment, then that was a problem. So I needed to find ways of recording
but the thing is,
out and about.
Back in the day, I used to take my mini tape recorders to parties and get vox pops. So there were the things I could have done with this little beauty. It's amazing, but it's ironic, really. You were saying that you wanted to keep it low tech, and in keeping it low, in what you've done has actually kind of inspired me twice over to sort of streamline things, because I bought a digital dictaphone when I went round to your place, I think probably in 2019, and we just I realised you were. Like many people, you're working entirely from a laptop, and you were able to do, because you're just as demanding as I am when it comes to things working with the computer, because you've got lots of projects on. And I thought, well, actually, you've got a nice little setup there. And I thought, well, really, maybe that would be an attractive idea. And I came home after that first meeting, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to, because I had a bit of money given to me by Mum, and I kind of went out and bought a really nice spec laptop, which I'm using as we speak, and it's revolutionised my work at home. It's so good.
I think that's another thing, is that I don't want to be so worried about, we do an episode, and then Toby goes and does the washing up in the middle, in the background. I mean, you could be really worried about that, or you could just say, well, it's a very naturalistic situation.
You're recording from home. I don't think so. Similarly,
I don't want it to be like it's in a studio. I want it to be homegrown, homemade.
Absolutely. For example, whilst we've been recording this little bit in the last few minutes, Ali's popped in. I usually didn't say anything because she knows we're recording, but she's popped in, asked me if I wanted a cup of tea by putting a tea sign up, and came back with a cup of tea, and we are none the wiser. I'm kind of it's happening all around us, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter.
If Dealey happened to turn up now and want to start meowing, then great. I've got a recording of Dealey on the show.
Exactly, because
there's plenty of podcasts. There are plenty of podcasts you can listen to if you're looking for 100% pristine sound.
Yeah.
But you don't have they don't have Dealey in it. They don't have us in it.
Again, with hindsight, I mean, this is going off the track a bit, but with hindsight, because I used to record Doctor Who on audio, and I would shush everyone, but the first one, I wish I'd kept my first recording of it, because it was in the days before it occurred to me to shush everyone, and my sister was still living at home, and people, it was with part 4 of The Invisible Enemy, which was the Doctor Who I'd audioed, and you've got my dad coming out of the bathroom, and you've got my sister asking, having engaged in a conversation with my mum about who Louise Jameson was engaged to, or something, or mum making, oh, there's K9, and I wish I'd actually not ordered, because it would have made me a bit of a nicer person anyway. But I wish I hadn't told people to shut up now, because the DVDs, the videos, they're all just round the corner, and you soon enough you'd have a pristine copy, and State of Decay doesn't sound. The first episode of State of Decay doesn't sound quite right without my cat mewing in the middle of the TARDIS scene. I think that exists because it's on one of the RPSs, but no, it just as little recordings.
I don't like the look of this. I really don't. Martin, Look at this.
What is it? Yeah, Uncle John?
Well, Paul's talking to Nick. He's talking to Nick all about the, the 5th anniversary of the Shy Life podcast.
Yeah, so?
Well, shouldn't he be talking to us?
I don't know. Maybe he will do. Maybe he'll talk to some of the others as well.
Oh, doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like it to me. I think he's talking to Nick about how the show began, and he's going to put clips in. And well, that's a good point. Why aren't the others here? Why aren't we there? Why aren't, I don't know, Andrew and Lisa and all the other guests? Why are they here?
I really don't know. Yes, Uncle John, I really don't care. As long as they're, it's nice that they're marking the event some way. You can't really have all of the people involved in the show here. I guess that's why he'll be putting clips in to represent all the other people.
Well, it's not right. It's not right, I tell you.
Well, all right, whatever you say. I don't know why you're hanging around here anyway. Have you got something to prepare for?
You what?
Well, according to Ick, you and Cromitty are going to be announcing the naming of your stars later this episode. Is that right?
Oh yeah, the naming of the stars. Yes. For listeners who may have forgotten, Cromitty and I bought some stars, well, from Mr. Trowbridge. Well, when I say bought them, hired them. Anyway, we get to name them. And yes, that's right, we're going to announce who we are naming the stars after later this show.
Yes, well, I'm sure the listeners will remember that.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't guarantee it, I really wouldn't.
Well, all right then. Shush now, I'm just trying to listen to Paul.
What? Oh, yeah, you disgust me. You disgust me, Martin. I'd swap you with Martin Holmes in a heartbeat. I really would. He's much more reliable.
Well, that's not very nice.
Well, yeah, it might not be, but it's true.
I think going back to the start, I want to scamper quickly through the sort of points along the way. But when I came to deciding on the title of the podcast, it went back to a book of poetry I'd done, which was also called The Shy Life, which really was just a pun on the high life.
Yeah.
And it sort of being sort of the high life being an expression to me, you're having a great time, and you're and also obviously it's a play on Shayeti, and which had been my sort of nickname at that point for 10 years already, going back to the poetry. So I think I just thought that was an easy title to repurpose for the podcast, because I didn't really know. It's the life of Shayeti. And that covers whatever happened. I wanted to cover, whereas if I'd have called it the film and music podcast or something, then there'd be lots of times when that didn't happen. So it's a sort of deliberately general title to cover whatever I wanted to cover. But looking back to the early episodes, I can see, like in episode 2, we discussed vinyl, so that comes round again. 2016, because I'd been off work, and 2015 as well, I was buying a lot of vinyl. So, and I thought that was a good sort of, we could talk about vinyl for a bit with different guests and stuff. So there were bits and pieces about vinyl in the early days, which has sort of come back in the last, since lockdown really. But in episode 3, we we hit the ground running. We were off to Amsterdam by episode 3 because it just happened that was around the time of Callum's birthday, and Harry was in episodes 5 and 6, so he showed up early on. As early as episode 8, we were talking about Sutton Park. I'm kind of glad episode 9. It was my very last Poetry Cafe show to date was for my book A Yeti Way of Thinking in 2016, and I did a sort of podcast episode from that show, including stuff that I recorded on the night, and then I think I did a little bit of fictional stuff with characters coming in, who, as well as the real people who were there, like Callum and I think yourself and people from work who came along. We did the Yeti Way of Thinking on like a Friday night, and I think that might have been the time when Ali drove us home afterwards, because episode 10 it says that it was recorded in Charlton and Salisbury, and there was a proper chat with old friend Nick Goodman. So I think that was episode 10 was your first, although I'm sure you'd been in episode 9 as well at the show, but it is very much a diary when you go back to it, thinking, oh yes, this and that.
We have arrived at our destination, Amsterdam Zoo. We are currently watching 2 ratty-like creatures eating vegetables. I can't say I'm envious. I'm still not back on my food after my stomach bug. Anyway, you certainly wouldn't want to meet one of those on a dark night under your floorboards. There are lots of birds in this part of the zoo. There are flamingos with, goodness knows what they've got in their mouth. They've got weed, like whole chunks of weed. Not naughty weed, not smoking weed, like weed, sort of weed that grows in a pond. And there are herons as well. I'm not sure the herons are actually part of the exhibit. They might have just flown in. They seem to be everywhere. I think there are lots of local birds who realise that if you come to the zoo, you probably get a free feed up. So, sitting on the roof of the reptile house, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can see about 10 herons or similar birds waiting to see what the pelicans are going to get fed. If I was more into fish and felt more like eating, maybe I'd do the same, but no, not now, not today. Actually, I wouldn't like to battle with them. They've got sharper bills than I've got. Nice was very good. We both...
Were we self-catering?
Yes, we were. It was a weird self-catering. It was a hotel where it was like a room with a hob. But it was quite good. And
we kept on doing a meatball-y type tomatoey.
We had quite a good there was a quite good delicatessen nearby.
That's right. We kept on...
You went to a club and I got scared because you couldn't see what the club was.
That's right. So you started.
And I was like, I've got a headache. I'm just going to go back now. You go to it.
Wait outside for a bit.
Oh, no, not very long. And then I went back to the hotel. Trouble is, we only had one key, so I had to try and stay awake, and I didn't. And then the next thing I know, you're knocking on the door, probably after about 5 minutes. Like, I'm ready. Let me in now. Well, sorry. We went to the gallery. I like that gallery because it's got the art gallery, the modern art gallery. It's got really good views of the city. Yeah. And
this is very beautiful anyway.
And we went to another gallery up in the hills a bit more. Well, both of us have been back with different friends. I've used it as basis for other travels and trips and things. It is a nice city. Yeah. I've got one more. Actually, that's one second.
Oh, go on, let's have one interesting one. Can't be happy, are they?
Time is the thug. When he looks into the mirror, it looks to him as if he's melting. At least he's not alone. It's not just him, but all of them. All of those whom he grew up with. Has so much time really gone by? Who is it who actually allowed this to happen? Who had the right? It only seems myths since they were all so beautiful. But all that beauty, all that glamour is rapidly fading now. Soon it will only be preserved in old photos. Soon it will be gone. Life's biggest, cruelest joke. There is no comeuppance for this thief. Time is the thug that karma ignores. A bully who will never face justice. I spoke to Callum's sister, Julie, for episode 11, and she is, she was quite an achiever at the time, but she's gone on to do so much more in the last 5 years since then, and it was just at the point when she was starting to sort of involve with politics.
Yeah.
And I recorded with Jo quite early on. Now, I'd never recorded Sutton Park, I don't think, with Jo, but I knew she'd done sort of local radio on occasion, and unfortunately it was difficult to get her somewhere that was totally quiet. It's actually been easier since we've been using Zoom and Skype, and we've been able to do chats on that.
Yeah.
But a lot of the episodes that she and I did were recorded whilst we were in the pub.
Yeah.
Which, brings noises of its own, but I kind of liked that, and I think the audience liked it because I know Jo certainly became a very popular person to, people would ask me, is she coming back? Are you going to?
Oh, that's nice.
So the fact that it was in a pub obviously didn't bother those people because they, you could hear her, what she was saying. You could tell we had a banter. Lisa and Troby were in episode 13, and they've always said to me that after we did their chat, again in a pub in Winchester, that's what gave them the idea to do around the archives. So,
yes, indeed.
So that's sort of interesting. But an episode 15 and 16 were the first episodes with Doppy Smelly, so I got him back on my show quite early on in the day. I got my niece involved.
Yeah.
Pretty early on. She was in episode 18. We did a very, very silly episode where we were kind of just ad-libbing about setting up a band, and but we're just bouncing off each other silly ideas. It was really good fun.
Well, obviously now being the Green Party as well, I have a lot more to do with animals, as you might imagine, which is a good thing. I have I do have 2 cats and a dog, and anything else that's living in the house I don't know about. And they are all from Wood Green, which is a national animal shelter.
Which is what we did the show that you arranged. That was the charity. That was the charity, wasn't it?
That's right, it was. And I'm also doing a fire walk for them later this year. So I'm not a big fundraiser. That's not really my talent. But I try and help where I can.
What is I know a bit about the fire walk, but explain a bit more about what that involves.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know. I just thought I can do that without thinking. Well, I thought I probably can do that. Is just what I thought. That was the extent to my knowledge. I think we have some kind of training or something beforehand. But as far as I used to be part of. I used to have a company where to sort of make a point about women's self-belief, we taught them how to karate chop blocks of wood in half. So I'm thinking it's probably like that. It's to do with kind of mental preparation and other smoke and mirrors and stuff, which is fine. But just to me, it's like I'm not even bothered about that. It's just an easy thing. It doesn't worry me. It won't worry me on the day. I've done far more scary things than that. So it was just a way. They were doing it. I said I'll do it. This is before any of the politics stuff came into my life.
So we went to the theatre a lot at one stage.
We did. That was my winter of discontent.
All in one winter, was it?
Yes, well, I broken up with Matthew, if you remember. The tragic circumstances of that, and I realised what a dickhead he was. So
he won't be listening, will he?
no, there's no way. There's a snowflake in a warm place's chance he's listening. So no, I mean he's fine. We just weren't suited to each other. That's the basis there. And I sort of realised I'd invested so much of my spare time and whatnot in my relationship with Matthew that I hadn't really kept up friendships and things. And you and I haven't kept in touch that frequently, really.
You probably had so many letters though, because you seem to have lots of letters from them. So. Some I haven't even opened yet. No, I have.
So you never got the one that says shove off.
Obviously not.
Yeah, so anyway, so that happened. I just realised, I haven't really invested in other friendships, so I thought I had to make up a bit of ground. And also there were things that I wanted to do that Matt was never interested in doing, but you were, which was nice. So we spent kind of a winter really, didn't we, going on to... Well, you were in London most weekends anyway, weren't you, at the time?
What are your memories of being? I've used a few clips of you on Sutton Park, Andrew, and do you have any particular memories of episodes that you filmed? Or
I always used to enjoy Sutton Park, and because it was basically an excuse to improvise and be silly.
Yeah.
But I used to remember I quite liked being the sort of, it's not so far from the truth anyway, the sort of mad scientist character version of myself.
This is how I did, when I was doing an intro to this, I did describe you as being the sciencey person.
A bit sciencey.
Yeah, a bit sciencey.
So one of my favourite ones is the one when we had the rogue Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And we had to, it was full of evil and it was 100 foot tall or something, wasn't it? Basically achieved by holding it up by its leg up to the camera and behind some trees, in front of some trees, so it looked huge. And we'd set up an experiment to get all the evil out of it, and it was actually loosely based on some real science that I sort of vaguely did at the time. But you had this giant ball that you sucked the evil out of us. You ended up with a giant silver ball. And the idea was to do fractional distillation on it, so you could slowly get off the evil of it. And we did this by sticking the giant ball on top of a Kaplunk tube and then having a load of small silver balls come out the other end. And all these silver balls escaped and I think caused havoc.
We were going to do a spoof sort of superhero based on our own characters, and I remember that it didn't get that far. I think he did some drawings, but it didn't get that far. But because my name Chandler is all to do with ships and candles and supplies for ships, the main character was called Candleman, and I can't remember what my power was supposed to be.
Think about it just for a second. It must have had flame or light, or it had to have been flame.
Yeah, I mean, I remember he did on the drawings, and I one of the things that I don't remember how far we got with actually writing it. But but thinking about superheroes, that's the first time I've thought about Candleman in years.
Candleman, one of my creations, Paul. Get this, hot water bottle man. I swear to God, I think I drew about, well over 40 issues of that.
So what did he like get into people's beds and make them warm?
Well, the original concept was quite primitive, but eventually, as I grew older and had a more mature sense of humor, Hot Water Bottle Man would, instead of like fighting crime, he really brought comfort to the victims. So he had a cape, and he would wrap people in the cape and then give them the hot water bottle and suggest that they suck their thumb or something like that. So he was more of a bringer of comfort, but he would also solve the crime. Often the bad guy would get hit in the face by a thrown hot water bottle, which is, quite a deadly weapon, really. And
up on this Saturday evening on Radio Way. If you're just tuning in, You are probably thinking to yourself, yeah, that's what I thought. You're thinking, what is this all about? Yeah, well, that's two of us. Well, it's a virtual pub that I curate. Your man behind the bar and in front of it is Tim Mitchell. So I make this pub thing up every single week with the help of Gladys. And this week we've got Shy Yeti. He is our resident poet. He doesn't know that yet, but he's going to come back. You're right there with the drinks, Paul?
Yes, thank you.
Gladys, can you just move your walking stick, love? Thank you.
I think there's a bit of something floating in this one.
Well, it could well be. Yeah, don't have time to clean it up, really. But just while Shy is getting himself set up there, you're not going to guess what? Gladys has offered him one of those big trailers that you get on TV shows. You know, it's been the last half hour, yeah. Being what's been happening in the trailer? I mean, you've had lots of free drinks and lots of pampering, haven't you?
It's been good. Yeah, it's good. It's been good. Got kissed as well.
Kissed as well. So, yeah. Thank goodness she's playing the piano.
I'm about to eat a jelly bean that might be nice or might be horrible.
Stay tuned, listeners.
Ah!
Is it
What's it supposed to be again?
moldy cheese or caramel corn?
I think it might be moldy cheese.
No, you can tell if it's moldy cheese, trust me.
Yeah, but the thing is, mouldy cheese can be quite nice.
No, moldy cheese tastes like spoiled milk.
Yeah, but if you have some we had Stinking Bishop and we got it from the cheese shop and I re-hated it, so I hid it in her room on top of her bookshelf where she couldn't read.
Yeah, I think that might be mouldy cheese, but it wasn't too bad.
I just hid some of it because it's really stinky.
Really?
Stinking Bishop, yeah.
Because it's got there's a sweetness to it as well. Sweet mouldy
then
cheese.
It's caramel corn.
So that was the good one. Well, it wasn't that. That was the good. If that was the good one, it wasn't that good.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The weirdest one.
It was good for bad. It was good if it was the bad one. It was quite good. If it was the good one, then it was quite bad.
Yeah.
Something like that. Within the first 20 episodes, then I started asking other podcasters from shows I liked, whether they be on 548 or just other shows that I listened to, because I'd been listening to podcasts for about 5 years or so by the time before I started doing my own. So I really had some sort of podcasting friends, and but I also within the first year, any time I went on holiday, it was sort of part of the course to. I think around the time you started digitising Sutton Park, before then I had clips, but I wasn't sure how to get the audio off, and I'd just record clips off the TV. But I think it became sort of something that I thought, well, I know Sutton Park was a video thing, but it's not to say the audio is also interesting in its own right. Hearing all these voices, hearing voices of people who are on the show now, as they were 20 years ago, or whatever. Or just, you've got the videos as well, but it's not in the same way as when we've talked before and said how people put podcasts on YouTube. Yeah. It's sort of like the reverse, taking video and turning it into audio. Yeah. Or putting audio onto a video medium. So it's so I sort of did the reverse. Oh, goodness. Fascinating. Even I did not know that.
Hello, Conti. How are you doing?
Oh, hi. I'm fine. I'm just listening to Paul and Nick talking about the show. I would be interested to hear this final version of the show when it has all the clips involved. It must be very difficult to pick things from across 5 years.
Oh, yes. I imagine it'll, be just sort of limited deep into some of the more memorable episodes. I'm not sure.
Yes. Interesting. I guess we'll all be represented
It's a shame that we cannot be there to talk.
Well, yes, but, it's good that Nick couldn't be there.
Yes, but we are here. We could have talked to him.
Well, yes, Cromarty, but don't forget, I hope you're ready for the naming of the stars later on today.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. Absolutely. Yes. We shall be announcing who we are naming our stars after. Yes. It's exciting. It's a nice way to be part of this 5th anniversary show.
Yes, Cromarty, I think so. It's a nice way. It's a positive thing.
Yes. It's very positive. And in the first year, we sort of started traditions that we've continued, like doing a Halloween episode, doing like a birthday episode or a Christmas episode. We did our first live show, and although I did those for many years, although now we do the Chatterbox shows, which are recorded live but they're not broadcast, because most of the people who used to listen to them live, because when I started, although it's a bit more mixed now, I started off with people in America listening to me. But obviously, if I was doing a broadcast show, it wouldn't necessarily be a very good time for the American audience.
Yeah.
So the people who were listening tended to be people in the UK or diehard sort of podcasting colleagues and friends who were also on the show. So I think that's why we've developed into sort of if they're there in the chat room, they might as well be on the show. So,
yeah.
So which is the sort of way we've done it. But we did our first live show, which again took me learning technology, and but in October 2016 we did our first live show. So, but I also through podcasts I sort of met people like Jay the Horn Cub, who I listened to on his show, and it turned out he was listening to me on my show, and doing all these different shows, or sort of cross-pollinating across podcasts. We've met lots of different sort of people, and I think I had the sort of people like Yes Uncle John and Damn Mr. Uncle Horn came into the show quite early, and their stories sort of developed and cross-pollinated to the Smellcast, where there were a cast of characters. So I think, but we could. I think we're still evolving. I think we're still changing. I mean, the pandemic hasn't stopped you and I doing episodes. It's just meant that we've used Skype or we've used Zoom to record if we can't meet in person. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually prefer this. I prefer Skype because I'm someone who likes to wibble around and kind of move around, and having the freedom of not having to worry how you look or connectivity is much better on Skype. I find it much easier to work with.
Hello listeners, it's me, Cuthbert the Robot. I'm just here to interrupt the show with some very important additional content. It's been a very busy edition, celebrating the 5th anniversary of the Shy Life podcast. We began by looking back to the early days, and in just a while we will witness the result of the naming of the stars. So you could say that we are moving from the past to the present to, well, in a way we are now going to be looking to the future. We have 3 new chats with a number of recurring guests, so why not have a listen before we return to the final section of our extra special episode!
Hi listeners, it's me. Now for this, it's quite a special episode, and we've got a guest here who we haven't spoken to for a while. I don't think she even knows how special this episode is yet, but it's Bev from work. Hi Bev from work.
Hi Paul. Hi listeners, how you doing?
We're good. Now, I need to tell you why this episode is special. It's because this episode will be going out as part of our 5th anniversary episode. So we've been doing the show for 5 years and 435 episodes, something like that. And so yes, I thought it was nice to be able to speak to you and have you on this special episode.
Well, thank you for having me. And hip hip hooray, 5 years. That is a milestone. That is wonderful news. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in each week and listening to the episodes and just thinking about the things that we talk about and the things we say. So we celebrate you and thank you for being here, because if it was not for you, then there would be no show. There'd be no listeners. So hip hip hooray. Thank you.
Doing the show definitely kept me busy during lockdowns. I still released as many episodes as usual, but it was never a chore. It was always a good way of escaping into the little podcast world. But yeah, one of the things I have missed, and another reason this is special, this is one of the first times I've recorded outside for more than a few minutes since about last summer, because I don't have sort of very many areas I can go to when we're in lockdown. I don't have a back garden. My front yard is right by the railway station, so that's noisy. So yeah, I think last summer on my summer holidays, the one place I went was some woods near my house, and I recorded in them. And this is possibly now, today, the first time I've recorded outside for a while. So because we're sort of, at the moment, we're edging out of the lockdown, but yeah, who knows?
Hey, if you go down the woods today, I'm sure you see someone. So maybe going down the woods today, you might see Paul.
I don't know. I've gone away. I don't know if I can run very far these days. But yes, I've been sharing in this episode. Well, the listeners will know this, but I'm just telling you about. This episode I've dug into the archives for some clips from my early episodes. That when I started doing the show, I didn't really know it was going to, go on so long, and I also didn't think about it for months before I started it. I just sort of decided quite quickly, I think I'm going to do that today, and I went out and I recorded the first episode.
Well done to you, because as they say, that the graveyard is very rich, and the graveyard is very rich of people who want to do things and haven't done it, and then they've passed away. So writers, singers, actors, poets, all sorts of people live in the graveyard who didn't fulfill their desires, dreams, their goals. So well done for just thinking it and just doing it. As Nike says, let's just do it.
That is very true. I've met a lot of people over the years who always talked about doing things, and you think, well, just start doing it then. Don't talk about it. So I've always sort of liked getting on with things, and sorry, I'm just distracted because I just noticing some lovely little, I'm sure they're not lovely really, but lovely little squirrels chasing one another across the lawn. I haven't seen much, other than Dealey, I haven't seen much wildlife. Although Dealey's he's very keen on, he's like a real curtain twitcher. He's likes what he goes. There's one of the bedrooms. There's quite a high window. He likes sitting up there because he can get quite a good view of birds and people. And
I think it's called Neighbourhood Watch.
Yeah.
So I think Dealey is a part of the Neighbourhood Watch, just making sure that everything is in its place. Things are, the animals, the birds, the squirrels. I mean, in lockdown, people have been seeing a lot of foxes, a lot of the wildlife animals been coming out, and Dealey is just making sure that that part is secure by checking and twitching the curtains all the time.
It's so funny. He has to see me to my bed. Like because I sit in the Toby goes to bed a lot earlier than I do, and Dealey can be in his cat bed asleep, and then I decide I'm going to go to bed, and he's there in the middle of he's woken up, and he has to escort me and make sure I'm in bed, and then he leaves again. It's really like having your mum coming and tucking you in before you go to bed.
That's lovely, that is.
Unless that's not what it means, and I've just misunderstood it all. Has there been anything that you did during lockdown that you were able to be creative, or you were able to say, well, that's a positive thing, I would not have done if this hadn't happened?
Well, in lockdown, I spent a lot of time in my kitchen, teaching my children to cook.
Yes.
We actually done a come dine with me style, which was absolutely excellent.
Yeah.
And my family of 5, we produce a starter, a main, and a dessert. And then it was scored, which was absolutely amazing because my family were able to be creative.
Yeah.
I also spent quite a little bit of time researching, reading, and looking up things about cancer, which is what I used, which I wrote about for my dissertation. And you'll be extremely pleased to know that yesterday I submitted my dissertation of 11,000 words. And I'm extremely happy today because I didn't think I'd actually be able to make it because lockdown itself was quite distracting. I think when it first started, if I missed the news, I'd be really sort of like frustrated, didn't know what was going on. But after a while, I realised that I needed to stop focusing on the news and focus on more that I needed to do. So I'm really happy about that. I was also sort of looking at my eating habits and ingredients that I was using in my meals. And I was able to do more meal planning. I was able to lose some weight in lockdown. So that was really good. Not that I have totally followed the restriction of what those meal plans sort of look like, but it did help me trying to increase and lengthen my lifespan. So that was like a really good thing. And just really being able to enjoy the colour of my kitchen because whilst I was at work, I was never in there as much.
Yeah.
So that was a good thing as well. And stroking my cat. Stroking my cat Martini, who I don't get to communicate with as much because working life takes over. So that was a really good thing as well. So yeah, my inner creative self was able to be expelled out to others.
I can't remember if I told you, but Delia, last September, Delia was quite sick with pancreatitis, and we had to call a vet, and they had to come and they had to whisk him off, and he was away for 2 days, and they sorted it out, and he's all better now. But ever since, he's been quite sort of anxiety, separation anxiety. So it's a good thing that Toby works from home the whole time, so he has somebody with him. Of course, Callum moved out to live with his mum, so he's lost another of the people he knows. So I do feel for poor little Deals at times.
Oh, Dealey, darling Dealey.
He's 17 this year.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, he doesn't look it. I know parents always say that about their kids.
Yeah. Oh yes.
I don't know. I don't know what you think about this, but I've heard a lot of people say, in lockdown, they watch. Sometimes you hear people say, "Oh, I like watching funny things," or people who've drunk a lot, or people who have eaten more. But I don't seem to have done any of those 3 things. I think my escape. I think that's what it is. A lot of it is escape. I haven't been watching a lot of funny things. I think because I don't feel in the mood to be. I know it's nice to be cheered up, but I don't feel in the mood to be watching an outright comedy. I have other things I've watched, because I just haven't been in the mood to eat more or drink. I don't know. As I say, I think a lot of those things are escape, but everyone has to cope in their own way. And I think podcasting has been my escape. That's what I've turned to, and all of my network of friends all over the world. But obviously I have been watching TV, but not necessarily that sort of thing. I don't know. I have avoided as much news as possible, actually, the opposite of you. But I think that's just, again, it's just... the good thing about living with Toby is that he does watch things, and then he gives me the bullet points.
Yeah.
So I don't have to watch Boris talking for an hour and a half about something. I can just go, oh, he said this. Okay, right, let's
So my feelings about that is that, yes, I think that people have had to find somewhere to escape to, especially because we've not been able to just get on a plane or a train and go somewhere where we can kind of leave it all behind, and the real world has stopped for a while. Then we're in that vacation space and we're just enjoying those moments, and then we go back. So I think that people have had to find things to sort of do to cheer them up, to make them feel better. I mean, come on, even the pubs were closed, the restaurants were closed, anywhere that you could think of. There were even restrictions on sort of being in the park, especially if you're not a jogger or somebody who exercises a lot. There was only a certain amount of availability there for sort of to you. And I think for the fact that it was a pandemic, and well, it is still a pandemic in some countries as well. But I think as a result of that made it difficult for people who might feel fair about just sort of going out, being out, and especially the people who lost relatives and friends and parents due to the pandemic. They obviously found that more difficult as well. So sometimes people do need to find something that allows you to be able to laugh. Although I did watch Loose Women on one of the lockdown days, and they were talking about that it's actually really good for a woman to just maybe take a shower and have a good cry, because a good cry could alleviate the pressure that you felt, having the children in the home. You're not sort of used to them being there for that length of time. They're doing things, teaching your children online, all these things that were so different.
The programme that I watched, I thought was good because it gave you little moments of all sorts of things. Was I rewatched the whole of Desperate Housewives from beginning to end. But that's perfect for me, because you do have characters doing things that make you laugh, but then there's a twist, or there's a murder, or it's kind of got all my favourite things in one place.
So I suppose maybe for you that's sort of what made you happy. But I kind of thought about the people who maybe already suffered with depression, and then their network, their outreach, they were unable to receive what they were normally receiving. So I think for those people it brought on double depression. So even if you saw something really funny, you wasn't able to absorb it and enjoy it and laugh, which I felt was really sad as well.
Yeah, I did feel that a bit. That's why I was like I wasn't sure that. I think maybe I was almost worried that if I watched something funny I would feel like that, and I wouldn't feel that I would laugh. I wouldn't spoil it, because something that usually made me laugh wouldn't have worked this time, and I sort of wanted to preserve that.
I think we should always laugh. Because there's only two emotions in life, isn't there? Which is laughing or crying.
The stupid thing is, and it's really like egotistical, but when I do ad-libbing with my friends, or if we have the different characters on the podcast, when I come to edit them, I might have recorded them 3 weeks ago or more. I end up listening to them, and it makes me laugh, and it's us. So we're laughing at ourselves. How egotistical is that?
So I'll tell you another thing that I've done in lockdown as well, is I started doing these little sort of posts, sort of aimed at children, aimed at sort of like the younger children, and I've done a bit of singing, a little bit of Bible reading, a little bit of speaking, encouragement, inspiration, upliftment, and I would never have been able to do that had there been a lockdown, or not at the volume that I was doing it at. So that was quite interesting as well. And what came from that, which really sort of really warmed my heart, was there was a lady who she'd been listening in a lot and watching the videos, and there was a time when I wasn't feeling so well, so I'd stopped doing those posts. And then one day she came back on and she said, you know, I really missed what you was doing, because they were really inspiring me and really lifting me up. And since I hadn't had, you know, those posts, I felt quite suicidal. And I thought that was really sort of a wow moment, because it actually meant a little bit like your 5 years of doing these podcasts. If you don't do those podcasts, if you don't show up, then it can be detrimental for someone else. And I almost felt like, oh my gosh, you know, I need to still keep on doing this, because there's somebody out there who's relying on me to do something to give them that feel-good factor. And you might say, well, you know, people's happiness is not your responsibility. But if you can, happiness is a state of the mind. And if there's one thing that you can do to offer back to the world, I think it's imperative that you do that.
Dealey gets messages from a fan in I think he's in Japan, when Dealey appears, because Dealey is, particularly when I was recording in lockdown, Dealey was on the show a lot, and Dealey had people writing in saying, oh, I heard Dealey in this episode. He sounded really happy, and I'm thinking, what about the other 90 minutes when I was talking? I'm glad if anyone likes Dealey, because obviously I like Dealey. But anyway, we're running out of time. I was going to say, congratulations with your dissertation. I don't know if I ever told you what I did my dissertation on. Obviously I was at library school, and I did mine on marketing. It was like marketing a library service when the library service couldn't be in the building. I mean, it's almost relevant to now.
Definitely.
But the trouble is, it's one of those dissertations where you do all this work, you interview all these people, and I think what they wanted was this answer, and what I came up with was this answer.
Yeah.
And I later heard that wasn't what they wanted. But you know, you have to do your own research, and if you can't always make it fit, you have to be honest and truthful.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm a marketing student.
Yeah.
I've done 2 years in business and 2 years in marketing. And
could help me out.
Well, you could help me out.
Well, a long time ago. It was 1994.
So, you know, for me it was quite difficult, and I understand exactly what you're saying, that sometimes the numbers, when you're crunching the numbers, sometimes they don't always fit. But I think it's things like that identify that life is not perfect, and that's what we need to hanker on, opposed to always trying to find perfection. And perfection actually really is just as perfect or just as well as you personally can do it, opposed to you're looking on someone else and this is the way that they've done something, this is the answers they've come up with, this is the data they've come up with, and then you start comparing yourself. I think once you start comparing yourself to others, then you've found your perfection, and I think that's what we all need to strive for.
Well, that sounds like a good way to end our chat. I hope you'll come back on the show again soon, but I'm glad you've been able to be here for our 5th anniversary episode, and I know the listeners will be glad to have heard you again. And thanks again for talking to us.
Well, thank you for having me.
Is it like me, or can you hear that piano? How beautiful. Listeners, look across the green. I see a man playing a piano. It's like a grand piano in the middle of London. How strange. Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. He's running away. How strange. Oh well. Listeners, let's get back to the rest of the episode. Anyway, yes. Right. Thanks again, Bev.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello listeners, it's me. We're in Surbiton. It is, what's the date? The 21st of May 2021. Apologies for the cars going past. I'm here with Harry. How are you, Harry?
Hello there.
We're here really to talk about the fact that it's 5 years since we started the Shy Life podcast. and you were in one of the very early episodes, not the first episode, unlike Sutton Park where you were there right for episode 1, but you were there early on, like episode 2 or 3, I think. But
of the podcast.
Of the podcast, yes. And but I think we've done lots of different things, to incorporate you in the show, and or things we've done together to be in the show. Like the singing is the thing that comes to mind first. The songwriting.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely. So the first one we did was
Dan.
Oh, Dan. That's right. Yes.
Yes.
That's right. And then we did Too Much Information.
Yeah.
And we were going to do Mrs. March, but that sort of never really happened.
Yeah, there's still time. When things go back to a bit more normal. Because we used to do those on location down in the Kent, in our studios down in Kent. Well, in a bedroom, in a room, in the lounge of a place we were staying in Kent. But,
yes, and then there was quite a lot of mixing involved and various things involved.
But then I used to use the rehearsal stuff as well, so you got the whole picture of how we got to that. And I even, because we had quite a lot of rehearsal footage, I did an episode where I was supposed to be singing acoustically at a song festival.
We did. What was particularly good was that it's a nice quiet location down there, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
unless you got children running past, but but we've also done things sort of like we talked about Shakespeare's Sister after you'd been to see them live.
Yes. And that was particularly good because that was just before the pandemic. If they'd done it like 2 or 3 months later, it would have been completely off the chart. It wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, are they still together? Are they still?
I think so, but I don't know if we're going to see more stuff. So I think it's all really down. I think Marcy would basically do it as a drop of a hat. I think it's really down to Siobhan, really, and Siobhan has been known to be, although she was one to perhaps hold a lot of anger, she's also someone who can be quite nostalgic. And she did that stuff with Bananarama, didn't she? She came back to do the...
and I think the only reason she didn't do more with them is that they weren't really interested in doing an album with her. Because they've been a twosome for a long time, and I don't think they necessarily wanted to do a new album.
What was particularly nice from Siobhan's point of view was that she did the fun stuff with Bananarama and what she considers to be slightly more serious or slightly a little bit more edgier stuff with Shakespeare's Sister. Although they're both very tuneful and melodious sort of things, really. It was only just a slight extra edge with Shakespeare's Sister.
So, related to the podcast, but also beyond that, the last 5 years has seen all of Sutton Park being digitised. So, you probably... I've been able to share with you some of our old films, and obviously I've been putting some episodes on YouTube and using audio on the podcast. So the podcast has become a home for our old
have you been able to upload all of the episodes? Or?
No, not yet.
How many episodes were there?
3,200 something like that.
And how much have you uploaded?
I haven't done in any order. I've just done random episodes. So there are some of your episodes, and I remember showing you the one where you get tied to a tree. Which
tied to the tree and where
the most shocking thing about that episode for me is that it was such
a big smile on my face.
Well, no, was that it was February and we were all wearing t-shirts and no coats. That's what I was shocked about. The rest of it is just like standard. But so it's so your voice is heard in the past and in the present.
Absolutely, it was great fun doing those episodes.
And it's nice to have like more than just photos, because you can sort of see what people, even just the way people say things or what they say, little things they say, you might think, oh, he's talking about that, and that was because we did that off the show. We did this.
Right.
I mean, I like the fact that I have photos of my great aunt who I was very close to, but the few minutes over the years she did with Sutton Park.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
It's just it's nice to have the voice as well as the face.
Of course. Very lovely. Yeah, it's chronicled your life a little bit, hasn't it?
Well,
on the side.
A fictional life.
A fictional life.
It's more interesting than the real one, anyway. But the naughties aren't very well represented visually, but I did do a lot of things in them. Well, thank you very much for talking to me, and yes, I hope we'll still be. I hope we'll still be sitting here in 5 years' time. I hope we've gone home a few times, because it'll be really cold out here. It's a nice cafe, but I don't know if I want to be sitting here for 5 years. But also, my battery will run out, so there's no way I'm going to be able to record lots of episodes. But anyway, I hope we are sitting somewhere talking about the podcast in 5 years' time.
So, indeed. All right.
Thank you very much for all your support.
Take care.
And write some more songs for me to sing.
I will do, of course.
Listeners, now as part of our 5th anniversary episode, we have another special guest. It's Wifey Joe. How are you doing, Wifey?
Hello, Joe. I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. How are you?
Oh, I'm all right. Had to get you for our 5th anniversary. Can you believe it? 5 years
I know, 5 years. Where's that time gone? That's just.
I think I've used a little clip of us talking in the pub back when we could do that. Well, we're coming into the situation that maybe we can do that again eventually, but not
not for a while.
Not for a while, but yeah. So 435 episodes. You haven't been in all of them, but
no. Feels like it, but I haven't. No, it doesn't. Honestly, it doesn't.
I've been there for all of them.
You've been there for all of them. Man and boy.
Nearly. But, dear. How have you been? What have you been up to? Have you been able to be up to anything?
Not particularly. The ongoing, obviously, lockdown, COVID situation. But, so, yeah, just sort of work and... I've been gardening a bit actually, which is quite nice. Me seedlings have got a bit leggy in the greenhouse.
Oh, blimey!
That's the only thing about me that is leggy, I can tell you. So I've been putting my seedlings out, and it's now raining, so that's handy because I forgot to water them. So, so that's the highlight of my life at the moment. That's the stage I've reached. It's the highlight of my life.
We've got some orchids that have reflowered. We've got, but yeah, it gets the stage where you think, are you ever going to reflower? And you kind of think, you sort of, it's all very well that when they look healthy, but they're not coming up with shoots or flowers. So you're holding up space on the windowsill.
They're not earning their space, are they? They're not upholding their end of the bargain.
Floppy green leaves aren't that exciting. I want some flowers as well. Yes, I was talking to my mum about her. I think we've got a regular section on the show, although the listeners haven't heard this yet. But there's listeners I've recorded with my mum about her garden, and again, so I think we're doing the 4 seasons of her garden. But just an excuse to get her on the show, really. But, she's lucky though. She has a man who can in the garden, and it's not my dad.
I dream of a man that can. Oh dear.
My dad's out playing golf today. Actually, I think he's there's a load of 80-year-olds or up on the outskirts of Salisbury playing with their balls. But Actually, my mum was saying that they're like, oh, so they're like walking wounded. There's this one who's got this wrong, or this one who just come out of hospital. Nothing to do with COVID, just but they're as soon as they can, as soon as they can, they get back out
on the course.
But I was hoping to that Dealey would come and say hello, but he's fast asleep under his duvet. But,
haven't seen Dealey at all today, have we? He puts in an appearance, but no.
Actually, recently when I've been recording, he like kind of walks in a couple of minutes afterwards. And I'm like, you had people asking after you, but yes. So you were mentioning to me before we started recording that you're at least thinking about holidays for later in the year.
Yes. Well, we have got a holiday booked a week away. We are staying in the UK and we are heading up to the north. But that will hopefully be nice. So hopefully, I think because it's self-catering rather than in a hotel or somewhere, I'm hoping that if the COVID restrictions change, because we're self-contained, that sort of accommodation will still be able to be open. So fingers crossed it'll be good to have a break, which I mean sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? I've wanting a break when I haven't really been anywhere to do and done anything to need a break, of recent times, but it'd be nice to get a change of scene.
I took some photos of like Toby made some pizzas the other day, some homemade pizzas, and they look really nice, and I took some photos of them to put on my Instagram, and Toby was like, why are you taking photos of the pizzas? I was like, because I don't have anything else to take photos of these days. I was like, haven't been anywhere, haven't seen anyone. If Dealey does something, then that's like,
quick, where's my camera?
He's moved. To be fair, he takes a good photo, but there's not a lot of things. Well, some people seem to have managed to have taken lots. I suppose it depends where you are and where you are in the world as to whether you've managed to get out and go places. But the pizzas were the highlight of that week. But hopefully, well, I'm off work this week, and I'm hoping to go and sort of potter down the road and have a picnic lunch sitting by. I describe it as a lake, but it's actually more of a pond. But I presume it's still there. It might have been built over. I haven't been that direction for a long time. But it's just because I don't have a garden. It's just nice to sort of go and. I was saying to Bev, who's also on this episode, and listeners will have heard her. We went over to the gardens opposite work, and I don't know when I last sat out in a garden. I went to a wood briefly last summer for like an hour, but even then there were no seats in the wood. I just had to find a fallen tree and sit on the fallen tree.
Perch on it.
But anyway, well, hopefully we'll next time we talk, we'll be able to have been and done more exciting summery things. But
yes, hopefully. And it will involve ice cream, hopefully.
Ice cream, yes. Oh, we have got some ice cream in our freezer. After we did have a little accident with ice cream, where you can't talk. Our freezer doesn't have an alarm, so it's not always obvious that it's not properly closed. And we got some ice cream, and I managed not to close the door properly. And then for some reason, I don't think Toby went anywhere near the freezer. I think we must have just been eating stuff from the fridge, and we did go to the freezer. Everything was defrosted. But he did buy some more ice cream, but I don't touch the freezer now. But we got some Häagen-Dazs, so you don't get as much of it, but that's probably a good thing anyway. Shouldn't have bowls and bowls of it. So
pace yourself.
Yeah, we're aiming for sort of a small amount, but it tastes really good. So, dear. Well, anyway, thank you very much for talking to the listeners.
Nice to see you.
And nice to see you. And listeners, it's nice, very nice to hear her, isn't it? Sorry, you can't see. And yes, so happy 5th anniversary, and thank you for all your help on the show over the years. And
you're very welcome. Nice to chat.
Yes, and yes, we should move on to the last section of this episode. It's going to be a very long one, Joe, but you obviously your bit's the best bit. don't tell the other guests. Don't tell the other.
The highlight, absolutely, it's the highlight.
Oh, dear.
Heard him mention my name once. Well, maybe once, but not as many times as I would like him to have mentioned it. But yes, yeah.
Oh, yes, Uncle John, are you still going on about this?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Why aren't you thinking about the star? You know, you should be thinking about the stars. I mean, the naming of the stars.
Well, you know, I've decided who I'm going to name my star after. What more can I do?
Yes, well, I hope you've chosen somebody worthy. Poor Cromarty. Oh dear.
What do you mean by that? What? I don't understand.
Well, let's just say that if my instincts are right, then, Cromarty might be naming a star after a certain person.
Naming a star after a certain person? Who do you mean?
Don't be stupid, Uncle John. You're thick. No, dearie, not after you. I don't think you'll be included.
No, I think that's very doubtful, Dealey. You've probably got a star named after you already. So who are you talking about?
Oh, yes, Uncle John. If my theory is correct, Cromarty's going to name the star after you, or dedicate it to you. I just hope you've done the same for him. You're very important to him.
Yeah, well, no, I never,
Oh dear, yes, Uncle John. Oh dear.
Yes. Very fascinating. Very interesting.
Hello, Cromarty. How are you doing? Are you ready to dedicate your star?
Oh, yes, I have decided who exactly I am going to dedicate it to.
Oh, good. Well, I'm sure he'll be very pleased.
I beg your pardon?
I'm sure he'll be very pleased.
Who do you mean? I'm not sure I understand.
Well, the person you're dedicating the star to. I'm sure he'll be very pleased.
But Martin, you sound like you know. I haven't told anybody who I'm dedicating my star to.
Well, that's as may be, but I think a certain person knows it's going to be them.
What? But nobody can know. I literally have told nobody.
Well, maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, goodness. Now I'm all confused. Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
I wouldn't worry about it. It'll all come out in the wash.
Hello listeners, it's me, Paul. Just having a quick break from chatting to Nick about the 5 years of the Shy Life podcast, because we're coming up to a time in the show when Cromitty and Yeti Uncle John are going to announce who they are dedicating their stars to. The stars that they bought, hired off Mr. Trowbridge. And now we're going to play a little game. And even I don't know what's going to happen. But coming up next, you are going to hear Cromitty and Yeti Uncle John speaking about who they are dedicating the star to. But we will hear 6 different dedications from each of them. And each will be numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This allows you to kind of wonder which of those people they might be dedicating their star to. And then towards the end of the show, I shall be rolling a dice, and then that will cement exactly who they dedicated the star to. Yes, it's a little game we're playing just between you and I, and it will affect the story thereon. If this was a TV show, we'd get you all to call in and give your opinions on who the stars should be dedicated to. But we can't do that, so we're going to rely on a random dice. Anyway, right, here they come.
Oh, this is very exciting. I can't wait to see who the stars are going to be dedicated to.
Oh, yeah, it'll be very exciting. I hope you're ready, guys.
Yes, I'm ready. Cromitty? Oh, yes, I'm ready too. Great. Okay, then. If you want to let us know who would like to go first. Cromitty, you go first. Oh, thank you, Yeti Uncle John, so kind. Listeners, I would like to announce to you who I have dedicated my star to. The name of my dedication will be studied across the star. And, yes, so here we go. The person or persons that I am dedicating my star to is as follows. I am dedicating my star to you, the listeners, for listening to this show and supporting us for so many years. I am dedicating my star to my colleague and friend, Eek, because without him I would never have travelled to the stars. I am dedicating my star to Yeti Uncle John, who is my dearest friend and who makes me the man I am today. I am dedicating my star to Toppy Smelly, who is an inspiration every day and somebody I turn to for advice. I'm dedicating my star to Paul, who I have known for many years. He is responsible for turning my life around, and without him I would not be here on this show today. I'm dedicating my star to August Evans for all his creativity and for being such good company since his arrival at New Year. Well, thank you, Cromitty. That's marvellous. What a great decision. Yeti Uncle John, what about you? Who are you dedicating your star to? Oh, yes, well, I'm dedicating my star to somebody I think really deserves this privilege. And yes, the person I will be dedicating my star to is Toppy Smelly, who, when I was struggling with my magic, he kept supporting me. He never let me stop. He got me where I am today, wherever that might be. Yes. The person I'm dedicating my star to is Paul. Yes. My nephew, I guess. I never called him Nephew Paul, but yes. It's thanks to him that I'm on this show. I'm dedicating my star to August Evans, a man who I've known in many forms over the years. A man who continues to intrigue me. Yes. He did a very good portrait of me quite recently. I'm dedicating my star to Tallulah Twinklehorn. She's cooked me many a wonderful meal over the years, and I think she's been through a lot of trials and tribulations recently, and she deserves to be treated special. I'm dedicating my star to a man who's very special to me. I may not always treat him with quite as much respect as I should do, but quality, this star is for you. Dedicating this star to you, the listeners, as a thank you for listening to the show for 5 long years. And blimey, yes, they have been long years. Well, thank you, Yeti Uncle John. I think that's a great decision. And, wonderful. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Paul. Listeners, come with me. Yes, so 6 choices. We'll come back and reveal exactly what was said at the end of the show. I mean, there's too much, we've done, by the time this comes out, we've done getting on for 450 episodes, or getting that way. To look at every year, to look at every episode, it's too much for today, but I just wanted to sort of chat about some of the things, the early days, and where we thought we were going, or whether we even knew where we were going. And but I mean, 2021 so far has been very positive in that I've found a few new contributors. I've talked to a few people who I hadn't had on the show before, so it's not something that I think, oh gosh, I've run into a dead end now and things aren't changing. And what you did last year with bringing new voices on yourself is all part of that, and there's no reason why that can't continue when you're able to meet more people.
Well, I think in my case, whereas I think you've built up a good backup with the people that you've Skyped with. With the people I'm aiming to sort of target, I'm going to try and get them onto face to face. I'm just trying to work on them, as it were. So I think, yes, I mean, get this wretched COVID rubbish out of the way.
But it'll be interesting to see where we are in another 5 years, whether the show's still going. I was kind of thinking today before we spoke, where was I in Sutton Park 5 years in? That takes us to about 97.
It is.
And 96 was a year where I was based in one part of the country at one part of the year. Then I was in Salisbury for a couple of months. Then I moved to a different area, made new friends. It was a bit of a sort of, trying to make new roots in a different town, and the show was sort of a little bit. It could have ended in 1996, and then I met some new people in 97, and it took off again, particularly in 97 and 98. But I think that's partly because when I do projects, it does depend on the people I'm involved in the places I go, and I don't think my life necessarily is expecting to change that much. And also, of course, there was internet in 96, but we didn't have it at home. So meeting new people depended on the fact that you would meet them face to face somewhere. Whereas now, I met one of our recent recruits, Ryan, on Instagram, just chatting to him. He lives in Canada, and he's already appeared in half a dozen episodes, and so the way that you meet people, or the way that suddenly a fresh blood can come into the show, is a lot more possible than it might have been. So I don't think comparing where I was in Sutton Park at this point with
the podcast is really comparable because things have changed so much since the 90s. But I hope to still be doing the show. I think in 5 years' time, certainly the way I'm feeling, unless something else comes along, which I think is a bigger, better challenge. I feel like I've done a lot of. I've done video, I've done books, I've done live events, I've done, before we finish, going back to what I'd done that was audio before, is that I had done a bit of hospital radio, and listeners will remember that during the last 5 years, when I did the radio with Tim, it would always be, we'd do 2 or 3 shows, and then maybe a couple of years would pass, and then I kind of say, "Well, are you still doing it?" And then in about 2010, I videoed a few of the shows that we did, and then I think when he found out I was doing a podcast, he was like, "Oh, let's come on and do." So then we recorded audio bits during the show, and incorporated them into the podcast. So I kind of always enjoyed doing the hospital radio, but it was never a constant. So but it was nice to sort of be able to bring that into many episodes of the podcast. Although due to COVID, we've not been able to do much on the actual radio of late. But the interesting thing with that is that Tim had a sort of fictional element to his radio show where he had characters, even if they didn't always speak, he would refer to them, and it was nice to be able to bring Yeti Uncle John and particularly Yeti Uncle John, although I think some of the others came along too, and actually have Yeti Uncle John in the radio show. It sort of tickled me that again, linking the two universes, and so I'm always up for seeing what new paths we can tread and mixing different things, subjects, music, film, the travelling, new people, hearing about other people's lives or their interests, and the whole soap opera going on behind the scenes, which I could just focus on that, or I'm happy with what we've been doing, and I want to continue doing it, I think. And if Dealey lets me, will you let me, Deals? Yes. Yeah. Deals says it's fine. He likes being on the show. So. Anyway, Nick, thanks for
thank you.
Thanks for everything, all the episodes that you've been involved in, and thanks for
pleasure
letting me chat about the bits and pieces throughout the first 5 years of the Shy Life podcast.
Yes, indeed.
And we'll speak again soon.
Yeah,
and may there be many more years to come.
I hope so.
Hello, listeners. We're going to spin some dice, and you will get to see exactly who the stars were dedicated to. If you remember, the options for Cromarty were Dice Roll 1, the listeners, Dice Roll 2, Ick, Dice Roll 3, Yeti Uncle John,
Dice Roll 4, Toppy. Dice Roll 5, myself. Dice Roll 6, August Evans. So we're going to roll the dice now and see. I'm dedicating my star to you, the listeners. If it was not for you, there would be no show. Thank you, listeners. Thank you so much. Yes, listeners, it's true. Cromitty dedicated his star to you, the listeners. That was dice roll number 1. Yes. As for Yeti Uncle John, his 6 options were number 1, Toppy, number 2, myself, number 3, August Evans, number 4, Tallulah Twinglehorn, number 5, Cromitty, and number 6, the listeners. Let's roll the dice and see who he selected. The person that I have selected to dedicate a star to is a person who intrigues me and inspires me. It is August Evans. Thank you, August. There you go, listeners. Yeti Uncle John chose August Evans, dice roll number 3. I wonder what the rest of the regulars will make of that. Well, I guess it was a good show in the end. Quite exciting.
Yes, golly, Yeti Uncle John. I was quite surprised by you both selected. To dedicate your stars to.
Oh, well, I just thought August deserved a bit of a pep. I don't know. I thought, rightly or wrongly, that, maybe it would, I don't know, trigger something, but I'm not sure.
I don't know if he even knows. I have to make sure he hears.
Yes. I was kind of hoping he'd be there when I announced it, but never mind.
It was very nice for Cromitty to dedicate his star to the listeners.
Yes, I was quite, surprised. I was quite surprised that he did that, but I guess it was a nice move to do it on the 5th anniversary, and after all, the listeners are very important.
Yes, I agree. Yes. I'm glad I didn't put it better because, I really didn't think that either of those selections would have been the ones that came up.
Oh, yes, well, we surprised you. Yes, I must admit I was surprised as well. But anyway, I think it was a good surprise.
Oh, yes.
I gotta go now! Bye! Gotta go! Bye!
Goodbye.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
I think the Shy Yeti's marvelous. Oh, such a gentleman.
I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
So, August, how lovely that you have a star dedicated to you. What a lovely thing for Yeti Uncle John to do. A surprising choice in a way, only that I'm surprised he didn't name the star after himself.
Oh, yes. I know what you mean, Paul. Oh, dear.
Yes, this is true. But, Paul, I hope the listeners will be pleased that that I named my star after them. Oh, I imagine they will be. What a lovely decision to make. Very timely, but that wasn't the name that I was going for. But, oh yes, Paul, who did you think that I might name my star after? Oh, well, I don't know, right? I guess you and Yeti Uncle John are very close. Oh, wait, no, I did not think it was appropriate.
It is a shame he does not have a star named after him, though.
Well, maybe in the future, August. I'm sure you'll want to let Bettina know that if you have a star named after you, maybe you should call her.
Oh, yes. Maybe I will call Bettina. That's a nice idea. I think she'll be very pleased.
Oh, yes.
I think I'll go and do that now.
All right, then. Great.
He's a very nice man, that Yeti Uncle John.
He is, yes. Oh, Paul. Oh, dear. What's wrong, Cromitty? Well, I will admit that you were right, that Yeti Uncle John was, well, the person I was thinking about naming the star after, but... I got speaking to some of the others, and, well, I thought that it was possibly best not to, because Yeti Uncle John wouldn't have chosen you. Yeah, well, maybe. I don't know. Cromitty, I mean, it does seem like a bit of a last-minute change of mind for Yeti Uncle John to have chosen August. I mean, even when August was Damius, they weren't exactly best buddies. I know what you mean. Well, it's done now. I guess so. Well, there's no saying you couldn't, dedicate another star at another time. Maybe. Oh, and I guess, well, the listeners deserve a bit of a nice surprise.
I am surprised by your choice, Yeti Uncle John. August Evans.
Yes, absolutely.
Are you saying that was your first choice?
Yes, definitely.
Oh, come on. It was Cromitty, wasn't it?
What? Cromitty? Well, I did want to do something nice for Cromitty. He's been a bit down recently, but I just thought he might get the wrong idea, and I don't know what idea I want him to get, to be honest.
That's more like it. That's what I thought.
Yeah, so I was talking to some of the others earlier, and just that when I was talking about it just beforehand, I just felt a bit, I don't know.
So you changed your mind at the last minute?
Yes, I did, Martin, I did. I changed my mind at the last minute. Still, it's nice, August deserves a nice surprise.
I guess so. There's no say you couldn't do it at some other time. Dedicate another star to Cromitty.
No, I think the time's passed. Yes. Never mind. Never mind. Oh dear, listeners. This whole star dedication business, I knew it would end with complications. Still, our current situation all came about due to the roll of the dice. So maybe things would have worked out differently. Still, maybe they can still work themselves out. I think that's all we've got time for now. So happy 5th anniversary of the Shy Life podcast. And thanks for listening. And maybe do another 5 years, at least. All right. You take care. Bye for now. I think things are going to work out. I just know it. I think they really will. Bye-bye now.
Happy 5th birthday to the Shy Life podcast from me, Cuthbert the Robot. May you continue to be perky and strange for many years to come. Kiss, 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 exclamation.
When I listen to the Shy Life podcast, it makes me want to bake pies all day long. I don't know why.
Most definitely, yes. Most definitely, yes. Most definitely, yes. Most definitely, yes.
Whoa.